Good evening. My name is Dr. Larry Force, and I'd like to welcome you to the Proactive Caring Home and School Exchange, the transition exchange, the focus on transition. Um, I'm a professor of psychology at Mount Sinai College, along with my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Jeffrey Connell. And I'm going to ask everybody if they could mute themselves while we're going through this. That would be great. Jeff and I run a Center on Aging and Disability Policy, and we're here as a result of receiving a 3-year grant from New York State Development and Disability Planning Council to work with families that have individuals with intellectual disabilities to train them mindfulness-based stress reduction. In doing that, we brought Elaine Sproat onto our team as the project director. We had a very successful 3 years, and now we're into another year, an extended year, now with the focus on transitions. One of the things we've talked about privately and publicly is that Lisa Nathan and Peggy Pisano, with their focus on the Proactive Caring School Exchange, were at the right place, right time, and helped us so much in order to be able to move our message out there, especially with the closing with COVID. And they came on and they took control of this whole thing, and it's been wonderful. Tonight, we're very happy to have a very special guest with us, and I'd like to read a little bit about Lisa Carrero. Lisa and I met when we first started to do the support groups for Proactive Caring program. From day one, she's been a tremendous supporter and advocate. She also now sits on our advisory council, which is a statewide advisory council. So when Lisa, Nathan, and Peggy Pisano were planning, what the next couple of months were going to look like, there's no doubt that Lisa Carrero's name came up to the table. And I asked her, would she join us? And she graciously said yes. Prior to going on tonight, I asked her, would she join us again next time for part 2? And she said yes. And we're really so happy. Lisa is an RN, has an MS in special ed. She's the parent of a 19-year-old son with autism. She's a member of the Proactive Caring Program Advisory Council. She's currently working with SUNY Rockland on a pilot program called Project Elevate, which is focusing on developing independent skills for individuals 18 years and older. Previously, she was an instructor with the Bridges program, a post-secondary college experience for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities at SUNY Orange. Lisa is a graduate of the 2012 New York State Partners in Policymaking Program and the 2016 Leadership Education in Neurodevelopmental and Related Disorders, the LEND program, as well as the proud coach of a Thunderbolt Special Olympics team in track and field. And that's one of the things that was a clear message when I first met Lisa, her connection with sports and the rallying around the Thunderbolts. So with that, what I'd like to do on behalf of all of us is I'd like to introduce Lisa Carrero and welcome you and thank you again for joining us. You know from what we've talked about and what you've seen, it's an informal but informative exchange. So what we'd like to do is, Lisa and Nathan and Peggy Pisano will be the facilitators. And what we're going to ask you to do is very simple at the very beginning is tell us a little bit about Lisa and how did you end up here?
So, like you said, I'm a special educator. I have I kind of feel like I was, somebody guided me along my path. So I went to school and became a registered nurse, went back to school, got my master's degree in special education, spent probably 12 to 13 years teaching special education in an inclusion environment prior to having my son, Brendan, who was born with autism, and also with a host of medical issues. So I kind of feel like, I was groomed along this path to have the child that I had. I wouldn't say I was prepared, but I was knowledgeable in how to access the services that I needed to service. I've become very passionate about transition and post-secondary college experience and the life after school, because we are now seeing that for our son Brendan. And it's a really important piece and a step moving forward. So what I did tonight was when I was asked to present on, managing the IEP process in a stress-free way, especially for the later years, I created my top 10 list. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to share with you my top 10 suggestions for managing the IEP process in a stress-free way. So let me go and share my screen. Okay. So, all right, there's that. So can everyone see it? All right. So this is my top 10 ways. All right. So I was not always as calm about the IEP process as I am now. It's taken me a process to get to where I am. So the first thing is team, and to embrace the team concept when it comes to the IEP process, and also the whole transition piece. So team, together, everybody achieves more. I think what we have to do, and this was kind of difficult for me, is to acknowledge that we can't do it alone. And to really gather people around you who can support you and your child during this whole process. You're going to gather all your team, and some people are going to be in the infield and going to be the people that are really close to you. And then you're going to have, people who are maybe in the outfield. And these people, like I find, or what I have found is some of these people like cycle in back and forth. Sometimes they move into the infield, and sometimes they're moving out into the outfield. Your team, for every individual person or for every individual family, your team looks different. So like on my team, I have my parents who are wonderful. They kind of now support me in the outfield, where they were when Brendan was much younger, were more in the infield. I have, some really great friends that have come along and helped me. Of course, his teachers, my ComHab workers, his siblings, and just acknowledge all of these people as really being, part of your team, and you needing to rely on them. I think they offer a lot of, they help you see the bigger picture. You also, I feel, get better outcomes when you do work as this team approach, when you're working towards a common goal. So really thinking about who's in your team and how to incorporate them and utilize them the best you can. So my next slide has to do with cultivating relationships. Okay, and this also has taken me a while to learn on how to cultivate relationships with his teachers. I think as you get to the transition piece from 14 to 21, you really need to rely on your teachers to really help you identify what your child's strengths are, what maybe some of their challenges are. I think it's really, really important to develop those close relationships with those teachers, the one-to-one aides, school personnel. I think it's also important to cultivate that relationship with your pupil personnel director. You're going to really be relying on them over the next few years. I think it's important to talk with them and really share with them what it is that you want to, what your outcomes are for your child. So for example, like it's been really important over the last year, especially as I'm looking at the school bus not coming anymore, of developing Brendan's independence skills. So I had a conversation with his team. I gathered the whole team together, and I was like, listen, I really need to work on his independence skills. We need to start pulling away the one-to-one aid. What other ways in the school building can we work on implementing and integrating these independent activities throughout the day? So it was really important to, cultivate those relationships where they saw me coming, not as like a threat or, an adversary, but as really wanting to work with them and figuring out how, as a whole team, we could do this. And then how can I carry this out at home? Because it's not just on the school to do this. How am I going to carry this out at home? What are some suggestions I could do at home? How can I integrate the team outside of the school so that we're all working on these independence activities together? So I think cultivating relationships are really important. One of the best relationships I cultivated was with my pupil personnel director, and I had come to her because I really wanted, Brendan has always been educated outside of our school district, right? So he travels an hour away from my house to go to school. And he didn't have any community friends. And, actually I would be funny. I put my oldest and my youngest on the bus, and people didn't know that I had a third child because he was gone before they got on the bus. And he came home after everybody got off the bus because he had to travel so hard, such a great distance. So it was really important for me to start cultivating those relationships within the community. So I approached my pupil personnel director and said, I really would like Brendan bused home early a couple of days a week to do the track and field team. And she had attempted this in the past, and it's not that she didn't say no, but she was like, there's a lot of obstacles to that and everything. And I said, well, I'm a certified track and field coach at that time. And I was like, I'd really like to do something. So we really collaborated together. And out of that collaboration, the Thunderbolts were born. And that Thunderbolt community became his community. It became his friend group. It became my friend group. So, by working collaboratively and cultivating those relationships over the course of, many years, the Thunderbolts were born. And it's one of my proudest accomplishments or moments. So my next one is working towards or planning for transition. So one of my things which I did not embrace early on is I really feel that transition planning should start at your first IEP meeting. Okay, whether that's as a preschooler, whether that's as a kindergartner, wherever it is, whatever your first IEP meeting, transition and transition goals, or maybe not formal goals, but thoughts about what is the pathway for the child, and what are the goals that the family wants to work on, and how are we going to help this child transition out into the real world at 18 or 21. So I really would empower parents to start thinking about that as early as possible. It's like I said, it's something that I really wish that I had done much earlier on. And I think it would help families focus on the big picture, less on the specific academic skills that a child needs to acquire, which are very important, but really helps think about the big picture. One of the things that I had said to Brendan's teachers when I was talking to them about increasing his independence skills is it's really about, for me right now, and it's really about the process. It's not, at this point in his school career, more academics is not going to help him, but it's really about the process of how do you become an independent individual. So really, like, thinking about transition and planning for it and highlighting, these areas. The next thing is that I would say is become really familiar as a family member over the course, as soon as you can, of all the different support services that could potentially be available to you now and or as you're going to be exiting school. I think schools don't do a great job of informing families of what kind of services are out there. So I think, for that stress-free transition out of school is really start becoming familiar when the child is young. What kind of services are out there? What kind of things can I access? Another key thing is down here in the bottom of the screen, I have Westchester Institute of Human Development. I can't tell you the importance of train. They offer a ton of free training on transition process, on the IEP process, on, you know, what's available outside of school. They offer tons of free training. And what's really been great about COVID, they've moved almost everything over to Zoom. So I would travel to Westchester many times to go attend their trainings, because their trainings are top notch. But it's great now. I can dial in from my kitchen and still be cooking dinner and be, you know, learning important information. So I think for families, as much as you can, you know, take training, seek out training, it just gets you really prepared for that transition piece. One of the things that I had done, thanks to the partners in policymaking, was I created a vision board for Brendan. This vision board here, it's quite sad. I took a picture of it last night to include into the presentation. It's quite sad. The pictures are all curling. Some pictures have fallen off. But this vision board hangs inside of my cabinet in my kitchen. I look at it every day. I don't purposely think about it every day, but it's there. It catches my eye. Sometimes I stop and look at it and take stock of, you know, where we were, where we've come, where we still need to go. And, you know, it kind of helps focus me and keep my goals of what I've identified for Brendan front and center. But I think if families can do this, create a vision board, I think it really, and have it somewhere where they can refer to it. And I think what's been great about my vision board is, like I said, is I don't really consciously look at it every day, but it's there, like it catches my eye. I think one of the things we have to remember when we create a vision board for your child is to remember that there's no timeline on this vision board. You know, it's just to keep you kind of centered. Things change on your vision board. Like you may have to, you know, you may have to change things, or it may take you longer to reach certain goals. But I think it does keep you focused. Like I said, I've created this years ago. Some of the things we have achieved, some things it's going to take us many, many, many more years to achieve. But I do love it. I do have to spruce it up, though. I was thinking about when I when I was taking a picture of it. But I think it actually will be good, because I'll work on it and add some new things that I want to work on with Brendan. So I have a short little video I'm going to play. So I think another key thing that I've taken away, and this really has to do with building your team to a certain extent, is identifying strengths that your child has, because they're going to become your building blocks for moving forward out of the school system and into young adulthood and adulthood. So like I said, I'm a strong believer in strengths. One of the key people who were on my team was a psychologist by the name of Dr. Bartels. He was in my infield for many, many years. He's now more in the outfield. I kind of, you know, contact him when I'm really having an issue or I really need to talk something through. But he was the one that really taught me to figure out what Brendan's strengths were and how to utilize those strengths to teach him things that were challenging to him. So, you know, it started with, you know, putting together Legos, picture by picture by picture. It was creating visual schedules for him and, you know, moving him forward that way. But by me doing that has really opened my eyes to what Brendan could do and help move him forward. So I'm going to play this video. It's about a minute. I might stop it a little bit shorter, but when Brendan was very, very little, to get a little bit of respite, I would put in, he liked Bear in the Big Blue House VHS tapes, and I would throw the VHS tapes so that I could go clean a bathroom or something like that. So this trailer for this movie came on, and I heard it every single day. So I'm just going to play it. Hopefully it'll play. said, I would hear that pretty much every single day, and that I must find a voice for my son resonated with me. And initially I thought it was because he didn't have language. And I was like, okay, well, I got to get him to talk. But over the years, I realized it's really about finding Brendan's voice is really identifying what his strengths are. Right. And I think, for whatever problem there is a solution. So, I just thought I'd play it because as I was creating this PowerPoint, I was like, it just brought me back to that trailer. So, I think I've tried to find Brendan's voice by trying to find out what his strengths are and what he's really good at. Okay. So, again, this relates back to that video is, learning to work the problem. So trying to come up with, don't get stuck on obstacles, learn to problem solve. This is another thing that, Dr. Bartels, who was, like I said, in Brendan's infield, really helped me learn how to problem solve, how to engage with others to try to come up with solutions to different problems that I was facing. Know that, whatever problem you might be experiencing related to, transition, the IEP process, whatever it is that, what you need to come up with several different solutions. The first one might not work. We got to go to the second one. I think another key thing is when you identify a problem and also potential solutions for a family or last time for the family, but also for, the school, is you need to be ready to tackle the problem. So for Brendan, bedwetting was a huge issue. It was a huge issue. He was like 12 and 13 years old, and it was like he was wetting the bed constantly, and it was just, sheets after sheets after sheets, and all sorts of, the truck came with the pull-ups for the nights, and it was a lot of work. I was doing laundry every single day. Again, had spoken and problem solved with Dr. Bartels, and we had come up with a solution about a bedwetting alarm and everything else like that. But I didn't tackle it until I was ready to tackle it, because tackling it meant that I had to sleep in his room for 3 months. Tackling meant that I had to be ready to jump up at a moment's notice and get him out of bed and bring him to the bathroom and, reinforce, the alarm. So I think, I had to be ready to tackle the problem. And I was very proud of myself when he was finally totally 100% potty trained. I finally said, I was like, okay, I did all 3. I got them all potty trained. The next thing I would say is become familiar with, the continuum of adult services. So as a parent, and again, goes back to potentially training and or working with your school system, working with the teachers and or the transition team, is really become familiar with all of the different aspects of the adult services that are out there. I think, what happens is we are in the school system and we just think, okay, things are just going to continue as if they are, and that's not what happens. So we need to start doing visitations. We need to look at day programs. You need to look at what vocational services look like. Do they have specific programs for autism? I think what we need to do, go to transition fairs is really important. Another place where you gather a lot of information. Think outside the box. I think what for me, for my family, like I've spent, and I know other families who are a lot like me, I have spent years and years and years supporting Brendan and making him the best Brendan that he can be. And I have gone and I've looked at some of the programs that are out there, and it's not what I want for him. So encouraging families to get together to start, thinking outside the box. Is there ways that we can do things, sometimes something different? Like self-direction now really allows families to start thinking, okay, how can I create a program for my child once he exits school that really focuses on my child's strengths and, you know, is going to allow him to continue to learn and to grow and to become the best Brendan that he can be. So I really encourage families to, you know, don't settle for substandard care, to again cultivate those relationships as you're getting ready to get into adult services, learning to cultivate that relationship with those individuals, volunteer, and even, you know, go out on a limb and suggest how they could potentially do another type of program. I have the last two. Last is connect with families. I think this is huge. So in my mind, I always view myself as giving a hand back to the people who are coming up behind me, who are now new to the path that I've already walked, and to provide support. But I also am constantly trying to connect with families who have gone before me, and, you know, learn from them, to learn from, you know, their experiences and what their suggestions have been. I think families can be, families within your community can be wonderful resources. They can be friendships. They can be, they can offer you the respite. You know, it allows you a sense of belonging. Just a quick story, kind of tying back to the Thunderbolts. So I had been doing the Thunderbolts probably for 6 or 7 years, and Brendan and I got invited to the Warwick Firemen's Carnival one afternoon by 2 people from the Thunderbolts, Emma and Kaysen. And they invited us to come, and it was the first time him or I had really got invited to go do something with other family members. And it was great because Brendan rides any ride. So Emma liked certain rides, Kaysen liked certain rides, but they didn't like the same rides together. So Brendan would ride with Emma, then he would ride with Kaysen. I got to hang out with the moms. And I remember walking away from that evening and go, that's my why. That's why I did the Thunderbolts, because he now has a community. Okay, we have a community. And I think that's so important. And we are like traveling through this together, going through the transition process together. So we have each other to rely on. So I think connecting with other families is a huge benefit. And my last little statement is, this hangs over my bed, and I read it. It hangs there so that every day when I step out of my bed and put my feet on the floor, it's the first thing that I read. I read it to myself, but I also read it to Brendan, because I think we both need to believe. And I'll just read it to you, that, you know, we're all, you know, we are braver than we believe. We're stronger than we seem. We're smarter than we think, and we're loved more than we know. And this quote has gotten me through a lot of transition planning and thinking, am I good enough? Am I doing what needs to be done for my child and for other individuals in the community and stuff like that? And I think sometimes as family members, we don't give ourselves enough credit. And I think it's really, really important to, you know, to read this quote and to believe it. So that's my spiel.
Let me say this to you. That was outstanding. And obviously it's grounded in love, it's grounded in experience. You know, I mean, that whole idea of, you know, reaching back, reaching ahead. I mean, it's a very, very, very powerful, you know, image. You know, all of the things that you talked about. You know, the why the Thunderbolts, and having that moment when that's why the Thunderbolts. So before I open it up for a comment and exchange, I'd like to get comments from Lisa and from Peggy. You're muted, Peg.
Am I muted now?
No.
Okay. So I appreciate, having been in a school and being the school personnel on that team, I do have to say that I appreciate the fact that you talked about making it a cohesive team with the teachers and the staff and everybody else, because sometimes the school, from the school perspective, feel like we're sort of in isolation and sometimes in opposition to what a parent might think or want for their child. And so sometimes there's conflict, but I think if we all learn to work together, we can achieve and have the child achieve as much as possible. And I think that's a tremendous gift that you've given your son and everybody else that obviously you worked with. So I appreciate that. I really do.
I think it's really important to be able to compromise, I mean, to see their side and for them to see my side. I think it's really, really important, because if we're just going to be at disagreement, and it's just going to create conflict for everybody, and it's not beneficial.
Mhm. I agree.
Lisa, what do you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I love your presentation, Lisa, and it hit home in so many ways. I could relate in so many ways. And, with the potty training, it took me 7 years for Gabriel to go for completely at it. So I totally get it, 7 years.
Yeah.
When having the people like in your infield, I love that description. It's so point on. The doctors, the people that you need at the moment, and connecting to other families, so vital. That's how I met you. That's how I met, many of the families. I just think, what you really said resonating at the end about, like, your child best, pretty much, and having that strength. We need so much strength as parents of any kids. You need strength, but here, you're manufacturing their life. It's not just about, they're getting ready to go off to college and, into the workforce and off creating their own life. We're always there helping them create their life. And it's challenging beyond belief, especially now because I'm in the same boat as you, transitioning, after school, after the school bus stops coming, basically. So
Right.
I thought it was brilliant. It was really, really great. And you're such a leader in the community. So, kudos to you. It was awesome.
And, I want to build upon what Lisa and Peggy were saying, Lisa. You mentioned a couple things. You mentioned a number of things. But one of I love the fact that you have in your life a vision board. The idea is that there have been times in my life that I have manifested a vision board. And you made me think about the fact that maybe it's time to go back and create another one or add to the old one. The other thing that you said is this idea, I didn't tackle it until I was ready. I mean, you sit here now as a seasoned person with a lot of experience, but we're also reaching out to people that are just so frozen in the moment. They just don't know, like, you talked about the families, and Lisa Nathan talked about being connected to families. But for some people, for some families, it's just so overwhelming. They don't know where to start. And it's not really by starting outside, it's really by starting inside. And I think that, Lisa Nathan, one of the things that she has definitely brought to this program is that the exercise, the lived experience, the idea of just stopping for a moment. And one of the things that we know that people in watching this have said that they really have enjoyed this. So I'm going to swing back now to Lisa Nathan and ask her, is there a way that you could walk us through, a very brief exercise, but the fact that there are families that are, it's like in any arena, there are people that are further along on the path, so we're engaging with those individuals. What I've always found is that on that path, the people that are further along, they're not looking for new information as much as they're looking for, are you going to be here when you say you're going to be here? Are you going to be able to do for us what you say you're going to be able to do for us? Somebody that's just coming into the system or into that pathway, it's like so overwhelming. There's so many incoming, areas. So Lisa Nathan, would you be able to do that for us?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Larry, because starting when you're ready, I think, is so key, because we put so much pressure on ourselves as parents. And sometimes, like, you think, oh, it's got, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to get this done and that done. And sometimes you're just not ready yet. Sometimes you need to be in the right frame of mind. So would you like to segue into a little meditation for that, or?
Great, that would be great.
Okay, so I think having that moment, and we can develop that through a mini meditation that we can do right now. So I'm automatically, if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. I automatically go there. Okay, we're just going to connect. We spend so much time looping in our heads. We have so much on our heads and so much in our minds. So we're just going to take a minute and connect to our breath. We're going to breathe in through our nose. And we're going to breathe out like we're blowing out a candle. Nice long exhale. Breathe in. Breathe out, and as you breathe out, feel that tension release. Those places where you hold tension, your eyes, your jaw, your shoulders, your belly. And we're just going to enter into our bodies. We're just going to be present. We're going to take this moment to know that I'm doing the best I can. And I have my child's best interest at heart. And I'm just going to connect to my breath. I'm going to feel my body, my sit bones, where they're connected to the chair. Just going to feel that tension leave my body, because sometimes you just need a break, even if it's for a few moments. And say, I got this. And by breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your mouth, a longer exhale, you're stepping out of your stress response and into your relaxation response. And when you do that, you can think more clearly. Your body leaves the stress response behind. And once you start breathing like this, then you start getting more relaxed and you can think more clearly. And you'll be ready to tackle the next thing that comes your way. So thank you for this. Thank you, all the parents out there, for all you do. And thank you.
No, thank you. You know, you brought up a thing, and then I'd like to open it up for comment and exchange. You know, the idea of it's almost like a sense of forgiveness to yourself, that I'm doing as good as I can. You know, I had a conversation a couple months ago with somebody about this idea of the statement is, I'm good enough. Like, we're always trying to make it better, but do we ever really stop in the moment and just say, you know what, I'm good enough at this present time? So I think that exercise helps us, you know, frame that out. So thank you so much. So for the individuals that are joining us, comments, reflections, observations? Stace?
Hi, everybody. I'm always good for a chime in. I think that Lisa makes some great comments. I like the building blocks piece that she talked about. Brendan did a wonderful job with Legos, and now you can give him a really advanced, complicated, how many pieces can he put together, making like a boat or a ship or a train. Brendan loves trains. He does a great job with 1,000-piece puzzles, I know. Lisa, when he was doing Lego kits, give us a perception, like where did he start, how many pieces, and what does he do now?
So Brendy started with one picture matched to one block, and would build, you know, we would build very simple Legos. To now he's able to advance, you know, go into like these thick books and put together, you know, 1,000-piece Legos. And what we've also taught him, which is it, and he loves to do, is I've taught him how to do inventory on his Legos. So in the back of the book is all the Lego pieces with their model numbers. So he does inventory. This is when really Lisa needs a break. She's got to get something done. We do inventory on Legos. But it was a really great life skill, because it's like he has to match, count that he has the Lego, write the model number down, and then we go up on the Lego website and order our Lego pieces. So it's become a multifaceted project that we work on, and it's integrated a variety of different vocational skills, again, building on that like strength-based learning. Like, what is he really good at? How do I get him better at what he's already good at?
That's so great. And that reminds me of Temple Grandin. We've attended some of her talks over the years, and she specifically talks about building your child's portfolio in a strength-based way. So honing in on what are interests that are more specific to your individual child. My Eric loves to do art. He's really good at painting. He has a visual mind. His artwork is much more from a cartooning perspective, which is super cute, and the works are great. But when she talks about that, meaning Temple Grandin, it is important for parents to hone in and make time to continue to pursue where the strengths are. I think when we have an IEP or in early intervention, when we start with an IFSP, we look at what we are not able to do and where the gaps are and what are the holes that we need to close. And as caregivers, we become hypersensitive to those things. And sometimes maybe we lose sight of where the strengths are also. And I think that that's so important to drive home to parents, and to also always include when there are other siblings in the family, to be able to make the learning circle a welcoming experience and a unified experience where in my house, we're in Special Olympics also. I'm a swim coach, and my older son, Jason, is my assistant on the pool deck. My husband is a certified coach, and our younger son, Eric, is an athlete on the team. And this becomes a family experience for us. So to be able to find either school or community opportunities where we're fostering goodness and promoting skill building and life skills that will carry on in time. And that's important. I also love your team, Lisa, when you talk about the infield players and the outfield players. So in my early days, obviously it was my early intervention team. My son is now 14 and he has high functioning autism. And as we grew, like you said, it's the teachers, it's the CSE chairperson and the therapists in the school. But I have to give a shout out to the parents, including you, Lisa Correo, and you, Lisa Nathan, because along my way, having conversations with other parents and empowering me all the way to my meeting you, Dr. Force, last year at Mount St. Mary in our roundtable meeting with Elaine and Dr. Kahana and some of the other wonderful friends, that nice gal, Kayla's, I'm not sure that I'm saying her name correctly. There was a room full of people that were sharing experiences, either from knowing a person with a developmental disability or being a caregiver directly, like one person removed. And when we share those experiences together, it's empowering, it's educating. And I would draw back and say those have been some of my more powerful moments and lessons learned. So although a therapist and a teacher is putting out, novel information to build the skill, I think parents independently and caregivers are very empowered by other parents. And I think that's an important message.
Very, very powerful. Other comments? Thank you, Stacy, for sure. Yes, Kaylee's.
I just want to thank Ms. Carraro. I don't know if I'm saying her name correctly, but I was just so struck by the gift of your involvement in such how you created this model, and the love and the actual service that you're bringing to this world for parents who have children who need the kind of model that you're working. And I also thank you, Stacy, for answering my question, because I wanted to know how the family members are engaged. So that was intuition on your part, Stacy, that I was going to ask that question. The thing that I wanted to find out more about, though, is how do parents get in touch with this, that you created a model. It looks very workable, and especially it comes from your hard-earned experience directly. How do we get this model out to others? Do you have some sense of that?
Specifically regarding like the Thunderbolts, or like sharing the what I presented on, like.
I think the whole thing, that whole, I mean, you started with the metaphor of the team.
Yes.
Right.
The whole idea
The
of
whole
who's in
thing.
the infield, who's in the outfield. I mean, yes, for sure, and we're so glad you're here. We're recording this. We're putting this up on our digital resource center. We're sending it out through our mailing list, which is over 4,000.
Okay.
I think Kaylee's question is, how do you further amplify this? Because what you're doing is, I know you're not going to think of it as such, but it's really heroic.
Yeah.
It's
That's
heroic.
Well, I mean, I think I've always believed in trying to, and in a small way, we kind of do it like through the Thunderbolts, but really getting parents together in a room. I think that's why I was so drawn to the initial support groups of the proactive caring when we did it, is that because in that room were people who were further along than me. There were people who were, who were just starting on their journey, right? There were some people who were right alongside me. I think it was a very great place for, that sharing and being able to help one another. And I think that's a big takeaway that I've found is that, really trying to empower other families to help one another and recognize that other families need help and how can I help them. And I was there once, and if I share my story, it may resonate with another family. Like if I share the story of how I taught Brendan how to eat applesauce on the back deck one day, where I keyed up a Thomas video. And I remember this, and I think parents need to know this. Like I had to teach Brendan how to eat applesauce. He was very sensory defensive when he was younger, and I had to introduce applesauce. It was the most loneliest experience that I had. I was, thank God my husband took, and I needed the distraction, but my husband took my other two children out. I sat on the back deck with the computer and the applesauce, and I was like, he needs to learn how to eat applesauce. But it was the most loneliest, scariest feeling, because I was like, I didn't know if it was going to work. And I was like, okay, it was like, lick applesauce. I got a little bit of applesauce on his thing, and I played the Thomas video, and then let a few minutes go, and then I had to stop, and it's like, okay, lick the applesauce. I think families need to hear that, like that, that is a lonely, scary feeling. Other families have been there, and they have survived, and they have gotten through it, and, and how they did it. And I think that's so important. Lots of times we're in the dark about stuff and are scared to ask questions because, oh, what are they going to think if I say this about my kid? No, let's have an open discussion, because maybe I've been there and I can help you.
And I just want to say this. I use the word heroic in reference to you. Now I use the word heroic in reference to Lisa, Nathan, and to Stacy. Heroic, because of the fact that we assume, and this is something that I'm not sure if the three of you and other individuals within our network, you're there, you're present. But there are some individuals that do not have the same outcome and same surrounding of family and love and teamwork and all the other stuff. It's not like this for everybody. So what you're doing needs to be recognized, needs to be supported. And as Kaylee says, figure out a way, how do we broadcast this? We have a way to put it on our digital website, send it out, through the digital resource center, send it out through our mailing list. But maybe there's a way that, and this goes even beyond this discussion, to our advisory council. How do we get something like this into the curriculum? I mean, the whole role of Lisa, Nathan, and Peggy Pisano when they joined the Proactive Caring before COVID was to knock on the door of the school districts and say, hey, we're here. Wouldn't it be great if every IEP process started with a moment of meditation? And we have something. And maybe there's something we offer, or the different models that are being developed.
What the thing too is I think that school districts have to be educated on the importance of recognizing the struggles that families have. One of the things that I had gone to my school district and said, like, Brendan can't be the only individual in my school district that is this impaired that will benefit from OPWDD services. How come I have to go outside on my own and figure out how to get respite and qualify for OPWDD services, right? Like, those are services that can really help families while the student is still in school. And, like, when I went to them, this was this was a not the greatest, like, collaborative moment. I was like, listen, you should be telling families about that. And they're like, really? Do you really think we have that many families that would benefit from that? And subsequently, we started the Thunderbolts, and, like, they came out of the woodwork in Warwick. Like, they were like, they had a bunch of students that could have benefited from OPWDD services. Like, let those families know, help them access those, because these families, let's face it, if you can get a little respite, if you can get some ComHab time, like, your life as a parent, you just got better because you can be a better parent. You can maybe address things that need to be addressed with your other children or whatever. I think, school districts have to recognize the impact of raising a child with a disability and how it affects the whole entire family, and what it does to a family and how they can best support that family.
I love that. Look, we need to bring this to a close, but before we do, I know that Lisa, Nathan, and Stacy had some summary comments. So Lisa?
Well, you said something, Larry, that made me think of something, because Lisa is a brilliant storyteller. You can see that here. And I think stories really bring out, connect us, because it really helps paint a picture and really helps inhabit what you're saying. So, I think I'm all about the storytelling. So I think that maybe that could be a great way to spread more message.
I love that. Stacy, as we bring this to a close?
I agree with Lisa, where the school district has to take a little bit more responsibility. A lot of times, the best way to empower your individual child is to see the triad effect of the community to the school to the home. And sometimes maybe the school gets tunnel vision with the plan, the goals, the education, and the academics around supporting that. I think that it's not always said and implemented that parent training is in the special ed law. It's a specific section under Part D, and the CSE should do a better job with offering parent training, and maybe the model that Lisa has presented here, as well the problem solution model that Mike and Peggy's sister, forgive me, I don't remember her first name right now. Thank you. That they present with the problem solution model and some of the other wonderful education tools that we've put together can be presented to school districts as a model for use for parent trainings, whether it's,
that point,
and a further discussion, like you said, Larry, maybe between the council, and we can take this steps further as a vision board for our council.
I think we should elevate this to a discussion point with the advisory council, because I think it's a great idea. But I need to bring this to a close. David Cross, so glad you're here. And we hope you come back and join us again. All right, we meet every 2 weeks. Next week, we have a very special guest, 2 weeks, part 2 of Lisa Carraro, because I asked her beforehand, would she come back? Because the theme that Peggy and Lisa came up with, Lisa Nathan, is managing the transition after high school in a mindful way. And what I'd like to move the discussion to is the discussion of the work that you've done with the Bridges program. So with that, Wenjing, Robert, David, thank you so much, and we hope that everybody will join us again. And if any questions or anything like that, do not hesitate to reach out to us. Right, thank you again.
Thank you.